you know, again, that things change in the sense that what starts as somebody's secondary project may evolve and may actually become as important or even more important than the primary project. We're going to see how things go over the year. That shouldn't be the plan, but it does happen, and actually some of the secondary research projects that people have picked have turned out to be very fruitful. So think about that. I don't want whatever you pick as your secondary project to detract from your ability to do your primary project. It really is meant to be an academic complement to what you're really supposed to be focusing on. Okay. Productivity. We don't have specific metrics for productivity other than if you want to graduate with your MD with distinction, you will need to have that published paper. I'll just leave it at that for that. CHR approval, very, very important. We can't release the money until you have CHR approval. Okay. So you should be talking with your mentors and just seeing where you're at. Make sure that it's done. Okay. One of the things that can really hold up a project is waiting for that approval, and that's not a fun thing to do. HIPAA. Everybody know what HIPAA is? Yeah.
Question with CHR. I think if we didn't designate that we needed CHR approval,
then you're fine.
Okay.
If you don't need CHR approval, then we're not going to hold up your salary. But we should just double check and make sure you don't need CHR approval. Everybody know what HIPAA is? Okay. Super, super important, because do you know that if you have protected health information on, say, an unprotected device, something, say, that's not encrypted, that then gets stolen, that you and or your mentor, more likely the latter, could go to jail and or be liable for several $100,000 in fines. It's serious stuff. So we're going to require that your devices, particularly the ones that we provide you with, are encrypted. Anything that your mentors give you should be encrypted. If you have a personal device, it's got to be encrypted if you're having any kind of PHI on it. And hopefully you shouldn't have PHI on it at all. We have infrastructure for you if you want to have PHI. For instance, we have this thing called My Research, which is basically cloud-based computing with database storage for secure information that you should take advantage of. We'll tell you more about that. Any questions about that? Okay.
Question?
Yep.
I was wondering, with the WIP lectures, would they be available for anyone who's doing international art?
Great question. So we're going to be recording all of them, just like we're recording this session, and they will be posted to the web so that the international students can watch them. We're also going to be asking the international students to do WIPs. How we're going to do that may depend on where you are and how good your connection is. We've done it in different ways. With good connections, as long as you're going to stay up late one night, we will have you present live. You'll send us the slides, and we'll show the slides while you talk. If that doesn't work well, you'll pre-record the presentation, then we'll call you and just have you available for questions. But definitely the international students will be participating in the WIPs. Okay. I talked about all of those things. Yeah. Okay, Kim, was there anything else?
Erin just was going to say a few words about some of the finance guidelines.
Okay. Before we get
And the
there,
journal club too, you mentioned the journal club.
Yeah, we talked about the journal club. Yeah. Question?
Do we know when the WIPs are going to be scheduled? And they're twice a week?
No. They're twice a month.
Twice a month, okay.
It's a little complicated because we try and arrange it so that you present when your mentor is available. If everything was perfect and everybody came when we summoned them, you'd be doing it spaced out, but occasionally we can't do it because we do find it helpful for you to present with your mentor there. So it's a combo of when they're available and when you're available. But we'll try and get that out to you as soon as possible. All right?
Well, again, my name's Erin, I'm the finance analyst, and this will be short and sweet, because it's really mostly common sense. And as you progress in your academic career, you'll find out just how strict some of the rules can be whenever you're spending the government's money. So basically, you'll have $1,500, and it's a research pot, a travel pot, excuse me. Most of it will probably go to traveling to the TL1 conference. So the really important things to remember are, number one, don't use miles to book your flight, because I won't reimburse you for that. You'll be completely out of pocket. Book your flight early so that you're getting a reasonable fare. That'll give you more money to spend on other things. And two most important things, always get a receipt. Make sure it shows proof of payment. So when you check out of your hotel, make sure that it says you paid for this on Visa card, any 1, 2, 3, 4. Because they need to know that you actually paid. And make sure that it's itemized too. So if you go to dinner and you get the credit card slip and it just says $26, I need it to say that you bought the chicken and an iced tea, so I know you didn't buy $26 for the beer. Because alcohol is not allowed. Sorry, it takes all the fun out of it. Hardware is not allowed, so you can't buy an iPad if you have money left over at the end of the year. Office supplies are not allowed. Software is okay, and poster printing is okay. And that's about it. So mostly it's just common sense. After you travel, be sure that you get all of your receipts to me. You can just scan them and email them to me within 5 business days. Our travel office here can kick out your reimbursement at its own discretion if you wait too long to ask for reimbursement. So just give it to me, and if I need more stuff, we'll go over it and we'll get it submitted. And there'll be really detailed guidelines whenever you get your program guidelines, and it'll be available online. It'll be in the middle of this lovely packet that Kim has created. And email me and email Kim if you have questions. Email both of us, and one of us will definitely be. That's about it.
Is that for just to verify travel during the 12 months of the actual research year, or does that count for, if we went to a conference or something in the following year?
If you have money left over. Technically, yes, if you spend your money before June 25th, but what needs to happen is that you need to be presenting your research at a conference the following year. So you need to be able to show me that you have an abstract that was accepted and that you're presenting. So if you have money left over, we can work that out. And we'll probably have a lot of email communication next June if you do have money left over. And you can always ask me or Kim what your balance is throughout the year if you're not keeping track.
How about conference registration fees?
Yeah, and you'll probably have to pay for the TL1 conference, so yeah, you can send those too.
Actually reminded me of one other point that's sort of come up just in the last year. This is just a check-in about one issue that we've been going back and forth with the NIH. This does not apply to Doris Duke students, but if you're in the TL1 funds, you should know which funding source you have. If you are TL1, you're not allowed to do any form of international research. Okay, so I know that none of you who are on the TL1 fund are going abroad to do your research, but unfortunately we've learned that the NIH is even more inclusive in that definition of what international research is, because we've learned, for instance, that if you have an international collaborator who's on the paper that you're going to publish, that's international research, even if you never step foot abroad. It's crazy. But, so we need to know if you or your mentor have any plans to include anybody in your primary research project that you want to publish that involves anybody outside the United States, we must know right away. Otherwise, they will take your stipend away, and that would not be fun. Yeah.
Just to clarify, is Dean's office funding separate from the TL1?
Yes, if it's the dean is reasonable. Yeah.
The TL1 conference, is that only for people who are TL1 funded?
It depends. So some ProfPath people have come. Some people from molecular medicine have come. It's sort of dealt with on a one-by-one basis.
And international collaborators for secondary projects?
We'd rather not, if we can help it. We just want to keep it clean.
Sure.
And I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but this is what it is.
And Canada is.
Canada is international.
What about Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico.
That's a good question. I think you're okay. Puerto Rico, I think, counts as the U.S. in this situation. Yep.
catch how often the journal club is? Is that only 3 times?
It's 4 times.
4 times a year?
Yeah, and
Okay.
we'll organize them sort of as we go along, but one of them for sure will be probably next May as part of the UCSF Interschool Research Festival, of which you Palooza exclamation mark is part.
Okay. And for the bi-monthly lit sessions, you don't have to do any sort of assignment or preparation for those except when you're presenting, otherwise you're just taking in what other people.
All we expect is you to come and participate and provide, feedback to your colleagues.
I just have one thing about the finances and spending. It's always a good idea to check in with me before you spend the money. So just check in, we'll check in about how much you have and just make sure that it's within the guidelines of the spending. There are a lot of different funding structure, different funding mechanisms, and lots of different rules. I would rather you guys check in with me first, and then we give you the go-ahead and approval, and then you can get reimbursed. So we've had some bad situations when people have gone and spent money and then come in and said, oh, here's my receipt. So please just check in with me.
Another thing is, if any of you want to take a research course that other than DCR or RCR, you may find, for instance, that your work would benefit from taking a stats course. If that course is offered usually through the Advanced Training and Clinical Research program, and the course director is willing to take you in as an auditor, they'll charge us, but if we have the money, we will try and support you in doing that. But you have to let us know in advance if that's something you want. Yeah.
Is that via the TL1 or the?
That's mostly through other discretionary pots that we have.
So you'd be charged even though we wouldn't get credit for it?
We'll be charged even though you won't get credit. Yes, that's correct.
That's-
I know, it's sucky, but that's the way it works.
Are we allowed to vacation abroad?
You are?
I gotta track our like.
As long as it's not
Only
black.
where US, it's friendly, only countries where US is friendly.
I'll tell you guys sometime about my trip to North Korea. And then you'll see how to get in trouble with the US government. Yeah.
They do get 2 weeks of vacation a year with prior approval and agreement.
Right, so it's 2 weeks of vacation plus the usual holidays, it's in the manual. You need to check with your mentor, check in with them when you're coming and going. We're not gonna track that in the program, but your mentor is gonna be responsible for that.
And coming back to money, don't be afraid to ask your mentor to help you out with different things as well. I mean, people often, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Basically, if you don't ask, you never know, so that's my advice.
I completely agree with Peter. You guys are free labor for the faculty, really great free labor. You shouldn't feel shy about asking for stuff. And most of the time between the mentor or the program, we can get you what you need if you need it. So, yeah.
Question with the DCR and RCR, is that already, the tuition for that is already included if we're
Yeah.
part of this program?
Yeah.
You just have to register for it, and we'll make sure that you just basically have to do an online registration form. But you don't have to pay anything.
So what does RCR stand for?
Responsible conduct of research.
There's ethics that is required.
I'm still a little bit confused about what CTRFP encompasses, and my question, I guess, is when you were saying like the people who are honorarily invited to be part of it versus the people who are mandatorily.
Right. Good question. So if you're in the CTR pathway, you are required to do the CTRFP. But if let's say you're in global health, obviously a lot of people are doing clinical and translational work as part of their global health project. So they may benefit from participating in all the activities that I described. Otherwise, they'd be off by themselves just with their mentor without any other stuff to do. So instead of letting people languish by themselves, we offer them the infrastructure. Same with molecular medicine. Not everybody is doing molecular medicine. If you're doing zebrafish, you may not benefit from the clinical and translational research framework that we're providing. But a lot of people are doing translational molecular projects, and so those folks also benefit from the infrastructure that we've created. The only requirement is that we want, if people do want to do the program, that they do meet all the same requirements as everybody else. So if you're in molecular medicine or global health pathway, and you want to be part of CTRFP, that's great, but we still want you to come to all the WIPs, do the journal clubs, you know, basically have the same experience. Other questions? Okay, well, I want to just say,
So,
yep.
Can I just, one more comment, and I apologize if, Amana, if you covered this in the first 5 minutes that came. And that is, taking some time to be really clear about your entry back into the final year of medical school. Did you cover this a bit?
No.
Okay, so one of the challenges that we have administratively is every year or so there's a student or two who didn't realize precisely what their end date was going to be for their year of research and the start date of the rotations that they're interested in taking. And as you heard, because of the nature of the funding, there's this absolute requirement for 12 months of contiguous research. So take a look at your calendar and figure out what your start date and your end date is, and then look at what your plans are going to be for starting rotations in your final year. Make sure they line up, because if you come back to us in the spring, this is what's happened every once in a while, and say, you know what, I didn't realize, but I actually want to start an ortho rotation in the first week of June. But that actually is earlier than what your end date. That creates a lot of problems for us. So I suggest, if you haven't thought about, you could think of it as your glide path back into 5th year. Think about what it is that you want to do, go over the calendar, meet with CHA ahead of time, just make sure that everything's in place. And if something comes up that's a question, bring it up with us now, before you sign the contract and everything else, rather than what has happened every once in a while in the spring. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. If we've already filled out that withdrawal form accidentally incorrectly,
Yeah, fix
based
it.
on this,
Yeah.
is that
Fix it.
changeable? Fix it?
Yeah, sure.
Repeat all those signatures?
Just make sure it's correct for you. I'm
You
sure
can
it's
have
fixed.
the shot. Okay.
Yeah. Any questions about that?
Actually, just about that, the withdrawal form, they said that like the only days that they can consider the withdrawal, or at least when I asked, were like on the quarters.
Yeah.
But our rotations for 4th year rotations don't fall exactly on those quarters, they're like off by a week or two.
Yeah.
Is it okay to have our research year fall in line with the rotations, not the quarter?
It is, but again, I would really recommend, verifying everything, your own specific plans with CHA.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just figured this out today, that like you have to have this, like your last day of this, like, for example, you have end in June and start in June on that withdrawal form, even if you're actually starting your research in July, and then,
That's right.
but it has to go, what you put on the date has to be the registrar's dates, which don't match up with that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Other questions for anyone? Okay, well, welcome to the CTRFP, and we're looking forward to a fabulous year.
Everybody, before you go, I need you to give me those contracts.